and welcome to EduCurious. So talking about data literacy within artificial intelligence is a huge topic, especially in our educational world, our school system. Do we want the students to have free reign over it and complete all of their assignments using it? Or do we want to equip them with the way and tools, the guidelines to make this a tool set and be on the cutting edge of the future? And how do we stay relevant? And how do we connect with our students who are speaking this language? So welcome, Mr. Herman.
I've been using AI on a daily basis, sometimes on an hourly basis for the last 2 years and 2025 is shaping up to be a huge data explosion. Understand how we can use it to better our society, to better our workforce, to better our corporate standing, to better our teachers and educators, and also there's our students, because students are already using it for homework. 26% of high school students are now using ChatGPT or some sort of AI to do their homework. They are still reticent to use it. AI is not going away. AI is going to continue to explode in every single area of our lives. And we need to be able to learn how to manage it and manage the data that it gives us.
What is data literacy to you?
Well, it's academically, it's the ability to read, to interpret, to communicate data as information. It's not just making sense of the numbers and the charts and the graph. It's analyzing the data critically, ethically, being able to spot misleading information, to be able to make smart decisions and ask the right questions. For example, when you're reading the news, a headline might say crime rates jumped 5%. A data literate person might ask, well, compared to what? Compared to last year? Compared to the last 5 years? Over the last decade? What's the context of this statistic? What are the parameters of the analysis? And what's the source of the information? That is critical. Teaching students to recognize when they're looking at fake news or a deep fake video versus what we would consider to be real is essential, really, to the survival of our society.
So with AI, a lot of times there's fear around it taking away our ability to think critically. It's sort of like all the shortcuts, like, will the next generation be able to analyze and think critically for themselves? Oh no.
Technology, in my opinion, is neutral. And so the output depends on the intent that's put into the technology.
So we're always going to have people trying to take a shortcut.
They're going to need critical thinking skills now more than ever because we're being inundated with data so quickly. If you don't know how to parse data, if you don't know how to analyze, you will be left behind. AI will not replace your job, but someone who is AI literate will replace you. So essentially, a word problem on a small scale, learning how to decode that word problem is indicative of what we need to do with AI on a large scale, is to be able to understand and manage the data that it's giving us, because it will give you exactly what you ask for. So if you understand prompt engineering, how to craft and create a query for AI so that you get the desired result, that takes thinking, that takes skill, and that takes practice. So I think that all the quick fix, the lazy approach is going to be a flash in the pan versus people who are really taking the opportunity to use this to advance their skills to the next level.
What do you feel we need in the United States? What is the urgency of data literacy and education? And why do you feel, as the data says, that the US right now is behind in a lot of other countries in teaching data literacy?
Well, you're right. The US has been slow to integrate data literacy into the educational system. It's a lack of teacher training. It's a lack of awareness. I think it's a lack of awareness at the higher levels, whether they be on the school board, superintendent level, or at the state political level or the federal level. U.S. education has also put, in my opinion, an overemphasis on standardized testing. But countries like Canada and China have been integrating data literacy into their educational systems for years. They've made it a priority. They're prepping their students for a tech-driven world. And so US students are falling way behind and they don't even know it. We tend to compartmentalize things in the United States. We put things in boxes.
Jeff, do you think that AI in data literacy should be its own subject area, or do you feel like it should be integrated across all of the subject areas?
Well, it's not really its own subject. It needs to be integrated across all subjects.
There are so many different ways that AI can help us. And I'm thinking about within a classroom, personalized learning for all kinds of learning styles. Please tell us a little bit more about how AI can fill in those gaps and be adaptive to all of the different learning needs. And especially, you work with students that are neurodivergent learners.
It's highly adaptive to the point where you can create a specialized tutoring program for an individual student based on their aptitude, based on their the challenges that they have, and it can create for them personalized learning paths. So they can take complex data sets and either can turn it into an audio recording. It can present an infographic. It can present um, charts, graphs, anything that you need.
Tell me about some real life examples of how you're using this technology with your students in the ESE department.
I've been using it to help develop personalized lesson plans for quite some time. And that exercise is to project manage their transition from eighth grade to high school. They've expressed a lot of concerns about the transition, but my thought was instead of letting them flounder or instead of giving them pat answers, I would teach them project management and teach them how to integrate those skills and adapt them into a personalized program for each one of those students. So what I've done is scaled a lesson on project management, which they know nothing of, to the eighth grade ESE level so that it's understandable and usable for them. And it's also integrating all the lessons that we've been learning over the past 3 years, chunking large amounts of data into smaller bites, planning ahead, using timelines to chart your progress on a long-term project. So we've been learning all those different elements over the years, and now we're going to put them all together and in a scalable manner have them project manage their next 6 to 9 months so they can be as prepared as possible to enter high school on the right foot.
With all these possibilities with AI, where does AI help you with hitting the state standards and keeping you as an educator on track?
That's a great question because what I'm doing right now is the AI platform that I'm using is able to pull those standards in from the state website and drop them in and give me an entire list and the hyperlinks to the standards so I could put those in my lesson plan for the week. I can also integrate other programs like, for instance, we're integrating Orton Gillingham strategies into my lesson plans. And it will call out and identify where and how the Orton Gillingham strategies are being used in that particular segment of the lesson. It's adaptable to just about any platform or pathway that you want. It will give you all the information that you need so that you can spend more time being creative. I'm a creative person, but I've never been more creative than I have been since I've been using AI because it frees me up to think more or to delve deeper into maybe segments of a topic that I hadn't even considered that the AI system brought up. For me, it stimulates my creativity, not only for schoolwork, but also for story writing, script writing that I do. But I'm always in control. Essentially, I am project managing the AI system. So just as a project lead would have a number of team members who are dedicated to certain segments of that project, I can use AI as a single team member to parse out all those different elements. And then I look at it and either validate it or say, let's try something different. But ultimately, we, the user, if we're doing it correctly and understand data management, we can essentially project manage so many aspects of our lives, of our jobs, of our education, and still have time to do the creative things. So it really, really frees me up a time crunch standpoint because I've been collaborating with AI, especially over the last couple of days. And when I think about the way I used to do project management with just the traditional tools, maybe a computer, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, and a whole bunch of staff members, versus now, the time saving is absolutely incredible. And the result is pretty much better than what I used to get.
Jeff, could you share some of your favorite, maybe top 5 AI platforms that help you through your work week?
ChatGPT, the paid version, the $20 a month version, not the $200 a month version. That is my go-to. Every model that they release ups my output and cuts my time. They have different reasoning models. The O1 and hopefully the O3 model will be out soon. They have the mini versions. They have versions that are more robust in the programming area, and then some that are just more general purpose. Those offerings on OpenAI's ChatGPT 4 is my go-to. I also use Gemini. I also use Microsoft Copilot. When I'm putting together PowerPoint presentations, I have Copilot running right alongside, and it will generate custom images, custom graphics, whatever it is that I need for that slide. Instead of looking through stock photos and trying to find something that's not watermarked, I just tell it exactly what graphic that I want, and it gives it to me in about 10 seconds. It gives me 4 selections, and then I can pick what I want, or I can recycle it and try again. I also use Notebook LM, which is one of the most amazing platforms that I've come across. I know it's helped you, it's helped me immensely. Stanford University has a beta test called Storm Genie that I've been working with as well. And that is a great compiler of research. And not only does it compile the research, it presents it from different perspectives. For example, from a research scientist perspective, or from a social scientist perspective, or from an educator's perspective.
One of the cool parts is I see all of these people come up to you and
Mhm.
ask you about AI now. Like, you are the AI expert at my location. And anytime that I'm working on a project, because you stay so relevant, I know I can ask you, and you will say, well, I have tried out these 5 different platforms that have been in the news this week. And let me tell you about this one. So I really appreciate how current you stay with all of this technology. You're my go-to. You're my AI right now. on how to even get started, which has been great. What are some ethical issues we should consider when using AI for our neurodivergent students or for all students, especially the younger students that are still forming their thought patterns and ways of identifying with themselves?
Well, the big umbrella is right now is data privacy and informed consent and any potential bias that can be built into the AI algorithm from the programmers themselves or from the data that the large language model is extracting and using as part of their data sets. So we need to be aware of that, and the schools and the developers need to make sure that any data that's collected, that number one, that it needs to be as anonymous as possible, but any personal student data that is collected is secured, just like we take measures on our school or corporate websites to safeguard uh, medical information, personal information, social security numbers.
Could AI unintentionally replace us as teachers, educators, administrators, or in your case, as a special education teacher? Could we be replaced, or is it going to be a collaborative platform?
Well, you don't want to see humans replaced. It needs to be a support mechanism. It needs to be a collaborative relationship. As we talked about earlier, it definitely reduces your administrative burden. It can give you personalized assistance that really would take you hours, if not days, to find in the traditional manners that I've grown up with. And it can help really steer your educational agenda toward the individual student. Is there a concern that teachers can be replaced by all AI and virtual models? Sure. And is there a place for totally AI virtual education? I think there is. I don't think it's a replacement, but I think it's another avenue that can be pursued and can be maybe a lucrative venture for a venture capitalist. But when I think about neurodivergent students, I think about like my grandson is on the spectrum and he is attending college virtually. And that's perfect for him because he's not big on socialization. He can do it, but he's not a fan of it. But this allows him to be able to interact in a way that will help him grow and help him improve his social skills and help reduce his social anxiety, but also give him the independence to learn when he wants, where he wants.
So, in your opinion, this AI opportunity, this virtual world, this virtual reality paired with AI is actually a way to help neurodivergent students gain independence rather than becoming dependent on technology. There's just got to be a balance between always being on the screen and being okay without that.
I think if we really look at this critically, this can be another tool in our toolbox to help us progress. We were discussing earlier about every generation has some sort of new technology that is introduced, and the old guard rails against it for whatever reason and predicts the downfall of humankind if we embrace, let's say, streetlights, which was actually a thing. When street lighting was introduced in the 1800s, people railed against it because people would be staying up past their normal bedtime and they would be getting into all sorts of nefarious activities after dark. People, oh my God, when I was in college, I roomed with engineers and the personal calculator was just being introduced. So that's how old I am. And I remember going with one of my roommates to buy uh, the newest or the first release of the Texas Instruments TR-50, I think it was, calculator for an ungodly amount of money. And the engineering professors at the college were incensed that they were using calculators because they should just be using slide rules like they always have done. And they would even hold competitions in the classroom between the professor with the slide rule and the students with the personal calculator. And when the PC came out, the personal computer, teachers, I remember one of my daughter's teachers said that there would absolutely be no use of a computer in his classroom or at home to do any of his homework because all you had to do was push the run button and it would complete all your homework for you. And so we're at the same threshold now with AI where we're saying all we have to do is hit the run button and it will take care of our lives for us. But I really enjoy the collaborative rapport that I have with the platforms that I'm using. It's making me more creative. It's helping me manage my time better, manage my resources better, giving me access to more resources than I ever thought that I would have. And it's just a lot of fun to play with.
There's always the question about like, are the resources correct? Is the reference that you quoted a real one? So, of course, using discernment with that is critical. I'm glad you brought that up. I was thinking about how I had um, just like a regular Word document when I got my first computer years ago, and Mr. Clippett came out, and the grammar check and the spell check, and that was kind of a big deal. Like, you have
Oh
spell
yeah,
check, you're cheating. And I was
you're
thinking
cheating. Yeah.
that's how sometimes my knee-jerk reaction is with new technology, or
Mhm.
even because I love to be creative too. We had the program that was called Publisher, and you could drag different images around and make some sort of poster. And now I'm using Canva, and it is such a new world of creativity. It does save me
Mhm.
time and energy, but it has so many facets to where I can pull so many pictures, and it is already integrated with AI. So that is
It
an
is.
example of, so Canva uses AI within its output to make you more creative and productive. And that's something that is now not seen as scary because it's not in your face. Hey, this is AI, but it has all those features within it, and it's incredible.
Right. And I think it can make you, it's making me even more technically literate because I I've created my own GPTs with AI and I never thought I'd be able to do that. I've taken programming, again, I'm going to show my age, is when we were in college, uh, I took computer programming and we were using an IBM 370 mainframe computer with key punch cards. And so we had to flowchart everything manually. We had to manually write out our programming, type it one key punch card at a time, and then run it the card stack through the computer and get this green bar ream of paper printout. And then we would have to debug that printout, go back and do the whole thing over. Um, that's where the whole pots of coffee and Cheetos and Mountain Dew thing started. So what I can do now with AI is write custom GPTs for whatever I need. I feel like I'm actually accomplishing something and not needing my wife to get me through the course.
Tell me about how you use AI on ongoing data projects, which are required in our school. Showcase your data from the PM1 to PM2 test. Like, how do you use it? Because I've seen you use it, and I sat down and was like drooling over the numbers and the graphs. And I'm like, this is incredible. Tell me a little bit about that.
And what I've been doing is taking my PM1 and PM2 data for each individual student. You can anonymize it so that it's just looking at Sally's score. You're not putting in any personal information other than just the raw score, and then it will slice and dice the numbers any way that you want and provide really cogent output, not just the output, but ways in which you can steer the education of the student to help with learning gains in the areas where they're weak. It does a massive amount of data crunching in a very short amount of time, and it can really put all those numbers that I have such a hard time fathoming when I'm looking at them. It just puts them in a context that I can understand and that I can use and that I am using to help target spots in some weak areas where my kids are lagging behind and where we can show improvement.
I've seen that in action. I can't wait to see more of how that does eliminate all of the time spent. And it is cumbersome, the data. I used to be a data analyst for Florida's Natural, and I would spend hours sifting through the data when what I needed was that output, that chart, that graph for the salesperson to use. And the in between just was just all week long with numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And then the output now can be a couple clicks of the buttons and the right questions to ask one of your AI platforms.
Yes, the right prompt and an ongoing collaborative effort, because it's not just a one and done. It will give you what you ask for. And then you have to be able to, once again, analyze that data, be able to parse that data and see what you need, what you don't need, and then take it to the next step. Well, let's see what happens if we look at this side of the equation, and then it'll do that for you. So it's essentially doing all the grunt work that you spent days, if not weeks on, in a matter of minutes. And now you can spend your time constructively looking at the output and saying, okay, here's my plan for implementing what I need to implement to correct the deficiencies that this output is showing me.
It really does make us more efficient. And it is like having an assistant, which in the education world is practically unheard of. And we can spend more time on our passion, our education, our classroom, our practices. Yes. So thank you so much for joining us on EduCurious. I learned a lot. I learn a lot from you daily, but on this episode in particular, I learned some new tricks and ways to use AI to benefit me, to become more efficient, to save time, to dive deeper into things that I'm already curious about. So thank you, Jeffrey Herman, an AI expert and always on top of technology. And thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for another episode where we'll find out more about other educators and the tricks and tips that they bring to the table.
Thank you.